Hey, what's up, everyone? Wherever you are tuning in from at any one of our 8 locations, I am so glad that you're here. My name is Landon. I'm one of the leaders here at Called, and we tonight are starting a brand new message series. And if you didn't know, the month of May is the month of mental health awareness. And so the core team of Called agreed that we're going to talk about it. We're going to be talking about mental health this month. And before I introduce the series to you guys, I want to let you know something that we're doing in partnership with this series. Because it's Mental Health Awareness Night, the color, not night, Mental Health Awareness Month, the color of mental health is the color green. The color of mental health awareness is the color green. And so we're encouraging you every single week of this series, show up to Called wearing something green. It could be a shirt, it could be pants, it could be a scrunchie, it could be green Crocs or socks, whatever it is. Wear something green so that we can show as a ministry we are supporting and coming together for mental health awareness. So with that said, this is the series for this month. It's called When Anxiety Attacks. When Anxiety Attacks. Now, you and I, we are going to go through anxious moments in our lives. We're going to have worry. We're going to have doubt. We're going to have some loneliness. We might even have depression. But I believe that it's all going to start from a little root of anxiety. And we're going to talk about that in this series. We're going to talk about that tonight, in fact. But I want to give a little disclaimer. So right now, I want you to really press in, look at me, but also turn to your neighbor and tap them on the shoulder and tell them, pay attention. Turn to someone else, tap them on the shoulder and say, listen up. I don't want you to miss this. I want to make a disclaimer that we are going to be talking about anxiety. We're going to be talking about depression. We're going to be talking about loneliness. We're going to be talking about a bunch of mental health issues. But because we're going to be talking about it, I want to make a disclaimer to let you know that I don't know everything about mental health. What I do know is I know that there's a God who is bigger. I know that there is a God who cares. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just introducing this topic, and I'm doing it from a biblical and scriptural standpoint. But I am not standing here before you today, and none of our speakers are going to be doing this, saying that we are mental health professionals. Because I understand that although we all will deal with anxiety and some of these issues on a personal level, there are some people who's going to be dealing with it at a chemical level, which just means that there's something within us that may not be totally right. And you're going to need maybe professional help, and that's okay. The bottom line is that this series isn't meant to cure your mental health. This series is meant to let you notice that we're noticing you. I want you to notice that we're noticing you. I want you to know that we care for you. I want you to know that we love you, and there's a God who loves you too. So no matter who you are and what you're going through, whatever you feel like your mental health level is at right now, God cares, we care, we love you, we are here. There's nothing too big for God. You can come and talk to us, and we would love to pray for you. Again, the series isn't meant to cure mental health, but it's meant to bring awareness. That's what this month is about. And it's meant to let you know that we are here. So if you got that, someone say, got it. Now with that said, we're going to dive into week 1 of When Anxiety Attacks. And what better way to start off than to tell you a story of one of the things growing up that gave me the most anxiety. And that thing is actually on camera right now. I grew to kind of love it. I grew to deal with it. I grew to just know that it is a part of me. But growing up, it was a big insecurity. And that was this birthmark that I have on my neck. Now, a lot of you probably have noticed it. Maybe you haven't noticed it at all. I want to be transparent with you, and I'm going to bring some things that brought me anxiety. In fact, this is a little bit anxious right now, knowing that people is looking at this. Because I felt that my birthmark was like the ugliest part of me. And growing up in elementary school, people would tease me for it. People would say, what is that? People would say, do you just not shower? People would call it a hickey. People would tease a lot of different things about it, and it brought me anxiety. And And I mean, to the point where I was in the shower and I'm trying to scrub it off. I'm hoping that somehow it would magically disappear, but it didn't. And I just had to learn how to deal with anxiety when it would attack me. And I know that this is a physical thing, that this is a physical birthmark, but I want to let you know that there is a birthmark that will bring anxiety to every single believer's life. You have a birthmark if you believe in God, and if you've given your life to God, you have a birthmark that may bring you anxiety, like how this birthmark brought me anxiety growing up. And I want to put it this way, that every believer has a bullseye birthmark. Every believer has a bullseye birthmark. What I mean by that? See, when I gave my life to God, I remember that the church took me into another room and they had some of the leaders pray for me. And one of those leaders said, hey, you gave your life to God and that's awesome. But there's a devil, there's an enemy who doesn't like that. In fact, he said, you have a bullseye on your back. And really he was saying that when we give our life to God, there is a bullseye on our lives. And that bullseye is a birthmark of every believer. But that bullseye, that birthmark, can oftentimes bring anxiety. Now, I'm not saying that that decision is going to be anxious. No, what I'm saying is that when you give your life to God, the birthmark of a believer is a bullseye. But the target of the devil is your mind. The target of the devil is your mind. And his weapons is his lies. The target of the devil is your mind. And the weapons he chooses to use is his lies. See, when I gave my life to God, when I was reborn, I got a birthmark on I thought it was on my back, of a bullseye that the enemy was out for me, and I knew it. But I just didn't realize that the bullseye wasn't really on my back. The target was on my mind. The enemy was just attacking my thoughts, and he's going to want to do the same thing for you. And that is why that birthmark of a bullseye can bring anxiety if we don't protect ourselves from the schemes of the enemy. Because the enemy's going to try to attack your mind. And if he's attacking your mind, he's going to attack it with anxiety. He's going to attack it with lies. And we need to protect our mind from the lies of the enemy. This is what it says in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. It says, "Be alert and of sober mind. The enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." Someone say roaring. The enemy prowls around like a roaring lion. In other words, the enemy isn't being sneaky about it. He is being loud, and he is letting you know that he is there. And there are things in your life right now that is trying to get your attention, and that could just be the enemy roaring at you. And when he roars, he's just trying to cause a little bit of fear in your mind, a little bit of anxiety in your mind. So tonight, again, we're not trying to cure anxiety, but I wanted you to know that we are here and that God is here, and God is here for you. So what I want to do is I want to give you some steps of how we can combat ourselves against the attacks of the enemy, but against anxiety. And what we're going to be talking about in this series, that anxiety is only the starting point in our mind. That if anxiety grows, if we don't take care of when anxiety attacks and it grows, it can grow to depression, it can grow to isolation, it can grow to a lot of these mental health issues. But we need to take care of anxiety at its root. So how do we do that? Well, we saw in verse 8 that the enemy is roaring. Peter is warning us, hey, be alert. Watch out. The enemy is going around. He's trying to find some people to attack. He's saying, guard your mind. But in fact, a couple verses before that, in verse 6 and 7, Peter lets us know how we can do that exactly. So let's take a look in verse 6. It says this. It says, humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. See, we see two parts of verse 6 and verse 7. We see one part, it says, humble yourself. And the other part, it says, cast your anxiety on him because he cares for you. I've realized, and I thought for many years, that I was just supposed to cast my cares on God, that I cast my anxiety on God because he cares for me. I was supposed to cast those anxious thoughts, and I was supposed to just give it to God, and God, take it. I cast it to you. But I realized that there is a command and a result in these two verses. One is a command, and one is a result of our obedience to that command. God isn't commanding us to cast our anxiety on him. What God wants is he's commanding us to humble ourselves. We need to humble ourselves before him. And as a result, because we choose to humble ourselves before God, that we will be able to cast our anxiety on him because we know that he truly cares for us. So when anxiety attacks, we need to, number one, humble ourselves. What does that look like? When we humble ourselves, we are saying, God, you know better. God, it's not about me. We're saying, God, I trust your way. I know that your thoughts are higher than my thoughts. For you have a plan for me, a plan of good, a plan of hope. I know that I can plan my ways, but you're going to direct my path. God, I am trusting you. I'm releasing control. And God is saying, once we humble ourselves and once we release control, the result is we are actually casting our anxiety on him and know that he cares. So we need to humble ourselves so that we can cast our anxiety on him. To be totally honest with you and to kind of give you a little bit of a tough love, some of the root of my anxiety and your anxiety is pride. It's not all about you. It's not all about me. I was very encouraged and humbled by this statement that God wants to use me, but he doesn't need to use me. It's encouraging me because God wants to use you. God wants to use me. But it's humbling because he doesn't need either of us. He can use whoever he wants. But in my life, I always make it about me. And when I make it about me, when I make it about me, myself, and I, that's when I start to have anxiety. But when I release that and just humble myself so that I can cast my anxiety on him. So-called, however that looks like for you, however humbling yourself looks like. If you need to get on your knees, get on your knees. If you need to pray out loud, pray out loud. If you need to rededicate your life, rededicate your life. If you just need to do something physical to say, God, I am humbling myself to you. I believe that we will, as a result, have access to cast our anxiety on him. There's a called leader that's going to make their way up because they want to pray for you. So why don't we close our eyes and bow our heads. Put your hands out to receive this prayer.